The Sacramento Kings are the Chicago Bulls of the Western Conference, quite literally when you look at this team with Zach Lavine and Derozan. And this just really sucks for Kings fans. This is a talented roster, or one that would be at least mid to not above average in another time in the league. But in this difficult of a Western Conference, they may not even make the playoffs. And now what? Welcome to 30 teams in 30 days, let's get into the Sacramento Kings. Like something Chicago dealt with, the Kings are cursed in being an average to slightly above average roster with no hopes of climbing higher. It's basketball purgatory. And I'm not saying that every single team in the league has to be actively tanking or competing, but teams should be headed in one direction or another. With one of the best centers in the league, a few promising young players, and some big name veterans, you would just expect more from this team. Sources around the league speculate that the Kings' big three, that being Sabonis, Lavine, and Derozan, may be broken up during this offseason or throughout the next season. And with Sacramento not at the point of competing, and with the age of this core, it makes sense. Even at his age, DeMar DeRozan is a 20-point per game guy, something he's done for over a decade straight. Unfortunately, DeRozan has never been much of a floor spacer or defender, and at his age, I wonder if any team would take a risk on his playstyle. Of everyone in this trio, he's on the most reasonable contract, making $25 million through the end of the 2027 season. But I just don't know if DeRozan at this age could move the needle for a contender. He's been tied to joining Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero in Miami, but would those three be good enough? Maybe good enough in the East, but I don't know about good enough in the finals. He's been linked to the Warriors for Jonathan Kuminga, but DeRozan, Butler, and Green is a nightmare of a spacing lineup. Boston or Oklahoma could reinforce themselves, or a team that could already win the finals before pulling the trigger on him. Maybe they could add in DeRozan and help him get that elusive ring. At the end of the day, the Kings would really just be best off getting either a young prospect or just a draft pick for him, but it's tough, and DeRozan has aged away without having a true shot to win it all. The Warriors have also not been interested in Zach Lavine, with the recent Jonathan Kuminga trade talks for being a solid role player like Malik Monk or an unprotected first-round pick. Lavine, who is set to make $48 million through the 2027 season, is wanted by nearly nobody. With DeRozan, I could justify his contract, and while Zach is still a great scorer, most teams would take a less talented scorer for somebody who could defend or playmake at a higher level. Lavine just doesn't fit with most teams from a contract or on-the-court standpoint. Sacramento is also not prioritizing a contract extension with him, and I can see why. Zach is an all-star level talent, but as we saw in somebody like Bradley Beal, these smaller wings who can only score don't have that big of a market. A team that he could help out probably just doesn't need him. I don't really see there being a fair move for a guy like Zach. Either one team overpays for the big name scorer, or the Kings sell him at a low value. And the best of this trio is Domantas Sabonis. While Sabonis is one of the best centers in the league, honestly I would put him up in the top 5 with Davis, Wemby, Embiid, and Jokic. He is coming off of another great season, 19, 14, and 6, with a career year from the three-point line and the third straight year of leading the league in rebounds. Sabonis is one of the few players in the league who is the system. While he's not much of a defender or a consistent outside scorer, he can take over a game offensively, at least when he chooses to, and is probably the second best passing center in the league. He's also going to be 29 at the end of the season, so he's not exactly old, but I wouldn't call him fitting in the Kings timeline either. Sabonis is incredibly disrespected and might be one of the most disrespected players in the league of anybody in his talent range. And I think in this current role in Sacramento, we just aren't seeing how much potential he truly has in breaking the league. I wouldn't call him a real number 1 on a championship team, but imagine Isaiah Hartenstein as a top 10 MVP caliber player. That's who Domantas Sabonis is. He, of all people, would actually be perfect in Golden State, but it's just a matter if the Kings would want to give up somebody who's been in MVP voting for Jonathan Kuminga. This Sacramento Kings team is fundamentally broken. 2/3 of their big three won't move the needle for most contenders. The one on the cheapest contract, DeMar DeRozan, has his own issues and is going to be 36. Zach Lavine, while talented, is practically irrelevant. No team wants somebody making $50 million to not defend or playmake at a high level. And then there's Domantas Sabonis, one of the best players this team has ever come across and someone that they have failed to build around. Nate Clifford was the best player in Summer League this offseason. Keon Ellis is a steal, and he is on one of the best contracts in the league. Blake Monk can drop nearly 20 points on any given night. And overall, this is a Kings roster that has squandered an insane amount of talent in the last few seasons, and now their current direction is dedicated to replicating a rebuild that failed in Chicago. Things have really gone downhill ever since they fired Mike Brown and ever since that 2022-23 season. I feel bad because Kings fans generally deserve better, but this team is fundamentally broken. This roster does not work, this trio does not work, and they don't even put up positive minutes together, but there is no good way of separating them. As a Suns fan of all people, I can empathize what it's like for a team to have a rough future, and unfortunately Sacramento is in that. But unlike the Phoenix Suns, the Sacramento Kings actually had a worthwhile running and lost it just a few years ago. My biggest fear of the Sacramento Kings is that they do nothing. They waste the twilight years of DeMar DeRozan and the prime of Domantas Sabonis. Kings fans, I am sorry. I know you deserve better, but this trio is broken and it is a hard hole to dig out of. The Sacramento Kings are truly the Sacramento Kings of the Sacramento Kings. This was 30 teams in 30 days. If you liked the video, you know what to do, and I will catch you all next time.